So I want to welcome Laura, Barbara, and Amelia from Iskashita Refugee Network in Arizona. Amelia Natoli is Iskashita's grant writer and development director. Laura Porfirio is a storytelling coach and with a background in adult education. And Dr. Barbara Eisler, here's Barbara, is the founder of Iskashita. Barbara worked in international development and refugee resettlement for over 30 years. And after returning from work in Malawi, she witnessed both extreme food insecurity and rampant food waste in her hometown of Tucson. And in response, founded Iskashita Refugee Network. The network is a 22-year-old leading organization that uses food as a medium to build community between refugees and the established residents in Tucson, Arizona. As discussed in a recent AGO coffee chat, which y'all can find on our archive, we wanted to bring depth and humanity to the key performance indicators that Iskashita uses to measure pounds and volunteer hours. In July of 2024, Iskashita teamed up with Odyssey Storytelling to present a show with refugees' in-person stories of coming to the U.S. And some of that will be shared with you here today. So we welcome Barbara, Laura, and Amelia. Thank you.
Well, actually, it's just going to be us. All right. I'll just start and say hello, but I'm going to let Barbara have the first words about Iskashita because that's where our story starts. Is Iskashita. But I don't know. Okay.
Good afternoon. It's wonderful to be here. Iskashita means working cooperatively together. See how we work together? And that's exactly and the only way to do gleaning in this country. We were excited to have this opportunity to give voice to UN refugees through meeting Odyssey and collaborating with Odyssey to have people tell their story, their connection to community, and share those stories. And I think we, over these 23 years of gleaning, we get very caught up on number of pounds, how many people are coming, coordinating all of that work, and we're missing opportunities of impact stories, and they're everywhere. I have one experience a long time ago. I don't even remember what country the people were from. We've now worked with over 49 different ethnic groups. We started out with Somali Bantu, and that's where we get our name. But now we're all over the map with the number of cultures and ethnic groups, languages that we have worked with. But I went into a home and I happened to ask about, how's your food? And I don't know how I did it exactly, but I opened the refrigerator and there was a bottled water, which I abhor, and in single-use water bottles, and milk. And the only other thing was the vegetable drawers were filled with Iskashita vegetables and fruit. And I thought, oh my God, this food scarcity is real. And even harder when you're new to the community, when you don't speak the language. But the other thing that Iskashita allows people to do is to give back. We have a board of directors. Laura's part of our board of directors. We always have a refugee or an asylum seeker on our board of directors. And we have an advisory board so that we're checking in with people. Are we addressing the right issues? Are we staying with the mission? But I think the storytelling aspect has widened my idea about how to motivate people, how to motivate volunteers, how to motivate donors. It's it's real. The need is real out there, but it's often overlooked. And it's part of our job is to make sure that that's front and center through impactful stories. Kathy started the origin story. One of the aha moment that I had was I was first season of Gleaning. We call grapefruit the zucchini of the Southwest. And I had the opportunity to deliver one crate of grapefruit, and I was in an air-conditioned car. It was 105 in May, and I was taking down to a soup kitchen. And I got there, and there was a whole city block of people, whole spectrum of colors, faces, and I got overwhelmed and started hyperventilating in the car, going and tearful that I didn't have one grapefruit for everybody in that city block. And so I calmed myself down, and the very brusque founder of the soup kitchen comes up and grabs the grapefruit. I'm like, I don't have a grapefruit for not even one per person. And he said, yeah, we never have enough food. And he grabs the crate out of my hand. And then a few months later, I got a group called me as a confirmation group, and they wanted to go harvest. I'm like, oh my God, we already have so many grapefruit. I don't need you to harvest. And so I started thinking, well, I can't turn away volunteers. What do I do? So I decided that they could just go get the empty crates from the soup kitchen and come back with 20, 30 crates, fill them up with the grapefruit that had already been harvested, and then go straight back down to the soup kitchen. So they become the connectors, and that's who we are, connecting the food that is right there, that's just not being distributed and not being utilized within the community. And so that confirmation class had that impact, hands-on. Here's the need, here's the resources, now be those connectors to make that social change and fight for justice of all kinds.
Nice, thank you. My name is Amelia Natoli. I'm the development director at Iskashita. I think I can talk a little bit about how we use data in grant writing. I mean, one of the things that attracted me about grant writing, and I kind of got my chance to start writing grants at Iskashita, like it's kind of you combine some cold hard facts with some writing from the heart. And so it's like a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll. I was like, that's fun, but it's like, you've got to have a balance of both. And if you get too many facts and too many numbers, people are just overwhelmed. It's also something that comes across better in writing than in actual speaking and fundraising. It's okay to put these key performance indicators in your grant, but if you're talking about it, I can see people's eyes glazing over. And so we're learning that there's just some things that are better captured in stories, like Barbara talked about the aspect of refugees giving back, I think is maybe easier to demonstrate when we have somebody talking about how giving back to a community after they've lost everything, has rebuilt their identity. If we could get stories captured around that, it's just worth a lot more than my flowery writing that gets trapped in a grant, because it's a tough thing to communicate to people. I mean, gleaning is a difficult concept for people, and so is the idea of the recipients of the food participating in the actual work of gleaning. So that's challenging because it's very tied to especially in Arizona, there's this you're gonna, work for your SNAP benefits or something like that, or you're not gonna get anything for free. So it's trying to explain that that's not really the model. It's the model of refugees want to be engaged with their community. They want to build ties with their community. They want to provide So that's something that comes up through stories, and keeping those stories from getting just trapped in grants and trapped in, like whatever media, and never getting shared has been a challenge as well. That's Laura's helping us with. It's hard for me actually to change. I'll do my work. Yeah. Okay, so, thank you both for getting us started out. I'm here because literally just last August, well, no, about a year ago in March, another group that I'm involved with in Tucson called Odyssey Storytelling. We do live personal narratives on stage once a month, a different theme every month in Tucson. It's like The Moth. Is anybody The Moth? Okay. We have a down home Tucson, Arizona style moth. It's not competitive. It's not a story slam. It's the most loving, wonderful, generous, like heaping love on every person on stage audience you can approach. And that's why Barbara said, hey, Odyssey, can we do a Iskashita refugee story show? And everybody was like wide-eyed and maybe even a little rabbit in the road. But I was the one that was like, yes, please, I want that so bad. And the reason is because my background is in adult education. Okay, does anybody know what adult educators do? Okay, I totally know. You guys are my people. Because who knew what gleaning was? I didn't until about a couple of years ago, or maybe better than that. But gleaning, people don't know what you do, right? But it's so impactful. It's so important. What I did for 28 years as an adult educator was provide free classes in the community for people seeking to learn English as a second language or seek their GED diploma so they could get a job. And once you start saying those words, people are like, oh yeah, but like adult education. Anyways, my job in adult ed was training our students to be the advocates, to be the voice for adult ed. A lot of leadership development, a lot of civic engagement, and a lot of storytelling. And you know why? I mean, I took some notes. By the way, your conference is, now I can say I really do agree with what Amelia said before when they signed me up to come here. She's like, it's really one of the best conferences I've ever been to. And, I took her word for it, but now I'm experiencing it. You really are my people, and thank you for having me. But like the reason I took some notes about like the data, it is breaking people's brains. I mean, these days, the data, we're just swimming in it and we're buried in it and we're drowning in it. The classic fire hose, analogy that everybody's saying, like, oh, we're drinking from the fire hose. People, the public is having that same experience. Decision makers, can you imagine being a decision maker right now? Being like an elected official who has to like make important decisions. They need our help to like make sense of this like ocean of data. This kind of stats that our really dear friends at this location said are really good examples of why you need stories to go with the data. 2 out of 5 people in Rhode Island is tiny little, I live in Arizona where it takes hours to go anywhere. And like, I'm like, okay, there are 2 out of 5 people in Rhode Island, but they like rescued and distributed 1 million+ pounds of food. Well, why is there still so much hunger? What is wrong? What is the equation? It's not computing in my brain at all. And that's why we need stories to go with the data, because, the millions of pounds and the millions of mouths that got fed and the millions of pounds of waste that got, rescued and didn't go to waste it's so important, but we need those stories. So I had the experience of going from a 0 funded, like cut 100% from the state budget adult ed program to being fully funded a few years later after students went to the legislature a whole bunch of times telling their stories, telling their powerful 2 to 3 minute personal narratives that really can touch people's brains and hearts, right? Okay, so that's why I'm here. Thank you so much. Now I think we can go on to the next slide where we start, talking maybe a little more about Iskashika, because I know you already said a lot. Was there more that you need to say?
Well, we don't harvest just grapefruit, the kumquats that we have today and the pomelos that we have.
Kumquats and pomelos, that's
But
because
even though we swimming in grapefruit. We were at a private school and I saw the pool and we were doing a whole week of programming and I said to the headmaster, I'm like, can we fill the pool with grapefruit for a minute? At the end of the week, that was in May, gigantic Olympic-sized pool. I did not feel the temperature of the water when I suggested that. The headmaster said yes, but I certainly felt that it was freezing. So, and we didn't fill the whole pool. And yes, we ate the grapefruit afterwards, slowly. Just a beautiful face.
I think we need to be on the mic to have our Zoom audience be able to hear us, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
That's okay. I'm just trying to note to ourselves. Yeah, I don't think the other one is working. Yeah. So, is there anything else you want to say? Okay. Go to the next slide so we can start talking about like, more gleaning.
So you recognize the oranges, but over here we have a Peruvian apple in Arizona. It's called that because the Latin name is Lophoceros peruvianus, or it used to be called that. And those people yesterday that were at the farm were mentioning dragon fruit. This is a relative. It's a night blooming cereus, and but it doesn't have any spines except the ones right connected to the main stem. So, anyways, we take dragon fruit and we take Peruvian apples and we slice them thin. They're wonderful. People will eat them like apples, including some of our African friends. But we decided we could make chips out of them, very healthy chips. And all you do is slice them, thin slices and dehydrate, and you have cactus chips. So, our very own cactus chips, and nothing added, but it concentrates the sugar, and they're just a nice little thing. And then we help farmers. I just was mentioning at the story, or earlier today, the garlic farm. We won't be able to harvest our normal 2,500 pounds 2 times in the year to help the farmer out. 16 varieties of garlic because there's a border patrol checkpoint between us and the farm, and so we can't risk going through the checkpoint. And that's all I have to say. So year-round gleaning. Right now we're doing 3 days a week, 3-hour gleans with refugees and non-refugees getting to know each other. Like Mio, you want to hear some good stories? Mio started with us when? So this winter, and I just immediately said, "Oh my God, this volunteer! She's like a glove. She just fits. She did incredibly well." And just steps in and starts running and helping us do our work. Connecting with people, connecting with community.
That's amazing. All right, hold on. So Mio, when I met you at East Cachita not too long ago, I assumed that you had been around way longer than me with East Cachita, and you've actually been around less time than me. Wow, that's really cool. All right, so the next slide is we already talked a little bit about like, why did we do this storytelling show collaboration? And I just want to say a little bit more about how the stuff I learned with adult education, making an invisible program, a disenfranchised program, underfunded program that serves the most disenfranchised, underfunded, whatever, in the community. We took that from, getting cut every year to not getting cut every year. And now the community college gets cuts, but adult ed doesn't anymore. I mean, and I don't know what the magic formula for that is, but I do believe that stories are what really captured the minds and hearts of the decision makers. And that's because we are stories. We are made of stories. Stories are healing. When you tell a story, You are, heard and seen. When you listen to a story, you're relating, it heals you, even if it's not your story, it can still be really healing for you. I practice yoga with my friend and I do Ashtanga yoga, and she was talking about the chakras, and her little lesson about the chakras a week or two ago, it was, like everybody wants enlightenment. People want like peace and enlightenment and total like amazing, like clarity. But we need all these other needs, the chakras are all about the needs of our spiritual and physical selves. And I just, what she said was like, our most core important needs are to be loved, to be heard, and to be seen. And we can't get any kind of enlightenment or any kind of peace or healing without those basic needs being met. And I think that's part of the reason why Barbara wanted to do storytelling with the refugees in Tucson with Odyssey, is because she knew they needed to be heard. They needed to be loved by that crazy, loving, generous audience that we have every month. And they need to be seen, like the stories get lost in the data, as Amelia keeps reminding me, and how her mission is to like make sure that the stories don't get buried in these data points and all of that. And just as a lifelong Tucsonan, I've been in Tucson, Arizona my whole life. The flora and the fauna and the people passing through, and a lot of them staying, is just such a huge part of my being. And I really wanted to be a part of this show because I feel like Tucson is a welcoming place for refugees. It's awesome, right? Simba, you're gonna hear from him in a minute, is all about Tucson as this paradise on earth. It's so welcoming. The people are so nice and friendly. But man, we could do so much better if we like really hear people, and really see them, and they feel that love and that audience. There's nothing like being seen and heard and loved by an audience of like 50 to 100 or even more people, right? So anyways, that's why we did that. Is there anything else you want to say about why we did that East Kashita show? Okay. So when Barbara asked us to do that show, that's when I got sucked into East Kashita. I'm on the board now. I'm trying to volunteer as much as I can, which isn't a lot of time, but whatever little bit of time I have, I try to volunteer. And but my mission is to have the stories that need to be told and heard need to be told by the people whose lived experiences they are about. It is really awesome to hear all the stories of the people whose lives you guys have impacted, but it's so much more powerful when you hear that first person narrative. That's the work I do with storytelling. It's like that first person narrative. No, I could tell the legislators in Arizona till I'm blue in the face how important and an impact. Imagine free classes for adults and families and the jobs, and the impact is so deep, but they don't want to hear from me. And they don't need to hear from me more, maybe a little bit, but the balancing out of those, like the voices that need to be heard are the true authentic voices. Another thing that we always practiced in adult ed is nothing about us without us. It's a disabilities advocacy phrase. It applies here. Like with adult ed and the refugees, like, no, just stop talking about them and start like listening to them. Anyways, okay, so that's why for me, stories and data really go together. But so what I did after I worked with them on this show is I started trying to get some stories documented so I could broadcast them. And then this other guy, Larry, took over and started making a gazillion YouTube videos. And you should check out our YouTube channel because it's like exploding stuff that this other multimedia guy is doing. But I'm going to show you at least one multimedia piece that I got to do with Simba. And it's the impact one. And so I started with Simba, who is a board member. And he's got a lot to say.
The impact of Iskashita is we are primarily taking care of the refugee community. I would say, when I say refugees, I say UN refugees. Sometimes we get asylum seekers, but most of the time we are concentrated with the UN refugees who are new immigrant coming from all over the world. That Skashita has on these refugees is we are like that family member. We are like that family member that cares. After all, alongside, we come alongside to help those resettlements. We provide a safe place where we come and just meet other refugees, and asylum seekers, and it always feels good, when you meet someone else from your country, and you get to, and we form relationship. There's a lady whose job, her name, I can't remember her name, but her job is to help refugees and asylum seekers to learn how to drive. And that's an amazing gift. That's an amazing gift to someone who just moved into this country for the first time. Monday to Friday as well, we have harvesting trips where we go to people's homes and harvest the extra fruits that people couldn't, the excess fruits that they have in their homes. And that's a big job of what we do, because we believe in food security. I have to say that, coming from Africa and coming from Burundi, one of the poorest nation in the world, there's a lot of hunger, there's a lot of hunger where I come from. So when I came here, I was surprised that there is hunger as well here. There are families not doing well. There are families that don't have access to food, in America. And that is, mind-boggling to me. And all because there is no good governance or good management of the food. But there's an excess of food in this country, but yet again, there are people who have no access to that food. So that's where Kiskashita Refugee Network comes in, is to bridge that gap. For those that have the excess food, for those that have too much, how do we distribute it? So we work with supermarkets that give us every week, food that they think that, the label says that it's going to expire soon, that they need to dispose of, and we immediately get it, and we call our refugees and we give it to them. So you come on Wednesday, so we do the collect on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday we distribute it to refugees. And you should see it. People welcome that food. It's really good food, vegetables, milk, eggs, all kinds of things, And then with the harvesting, people have massive trees, fruit trees, and the U of A. We even work at the U of A with the agriculture department. They have their own hydroponics gardens, and they have a lot of tomatoes, and sometimes they grow too much, so they call us and we go and harvest it and give it to the refugees. Iskashita Refugee Network is like a mouthpiece to the Tucson community, to let them know about what is happening, we have guests, we have new members joining the family of Tucson, and let's all come together, because now we are going to live together, and Tucson is going to benefit from that, and we are going to be a very diverse community. We do cooking, many times. I love Afghanistan food, and I found out about Afghanistan food, Afghanistan rice, more precisely, coming at Iskashita, looking at these women who couldn't speak English, but through their cooking, I was able to make a connection. And now we have so many people coming to just find out about this new wealth of knowledge, wealth of diversity and new foods in town, And through that community of refugees, we've seen businesses grow, we've seen restaurants, we've seen, So basically, I believe in the next 10 years, 10 years, we are going to see a dramatic change in the people we see around Tucson. This year alone, we've received 10,000 refugees. This year alone, before even the end of the year, 10,000. So imagine, these new faces in the next 5 years, when they are well integrated, we are going to see many beautiful things, new restaurants, new food, new dances, you know what I mean? So yeah. In a few words, Iskashita Refugee Network is there to walk along the refugees and to let them know that they're not alone.
So meeting Simba totally, and these guys changed my life. But Simba told me early in our collaboration on the storytelling show, Laura, we have got to change the narrative. And this was last September, August, or even before that. And you know what has happened in the world since then. And, we know what's happening in Tucson, what's happening in your communities. It's daunting to think about trying to change the narrative in our country right now, but we have to try. We just have to do it in every possible way, packing our YouTube channel, put it full of videos that can educate the public. We can share those out on social media, share them out in our newsletters. That's a lot of preaching to the choir. I mean, when I think about storytelling for power and behavior change and hearts changing and minds changing, I think about, what do certain audiences need to hear? Like certain audiences, like our friend earlier said, don't need to hear the word hunger, they need to hear other words. And so we have to be really mindful of the words we're, using and the stories we're telling. And like this video, who was that video for, do you think? Who do you think needs to see that video? Donors? Yeah, okay, they have a lot of power. Volunteers, yeah, so they can relate, and whether they're already volunteering and be like, oh, wow, yeah, I'm part of this big, awesome thing, or they're potential new ones, yeah. Anybody else? Any other? Yeah, I mean, would you show that movie to, JD Vance? Maybe not, but maybe there's some other politicians in office who could be, yeah, you see what I'm saying? Absolutely policymakers. And why does a policymaker need to hear, what part of Simba's message does a policymaker need to hear?
All kinds of solutions, community solutions, reduction, all kinds of negativity, it's like a positivity.
Okay,
They
positive message.
check off what their constituents are asking them to do in an easy way.
Okay,
For you guys, look, I checked that box.
yes.
I got them in the new food, new restaurant, new like business.
Businesses, business interests. There's no politician is going to be able to deny the economic, impact of refugees when you put it that way, right? Oh, okay, we have 5 minutes. So I'm gonna hand it back over in a minute here to Amelia. I know I wanna, well, go ahead and go to the next slide. We have in the PowerPoint, I think you all have access to the PowerPoint. There's more links to more stories and more videos that we have made so far on YouTube. Look at that beautiful heart that you made that, right, Barbara? Yeah, it's really sweet. So I'll just finish what I wanted to say really quick. And then I want to hand it over, but data plus stories is serious power. It's just that it's a winning combination. It never loses because the people, they need the data, decision makers need data. They need to know those millions of pounds, but they need that that story that Barbara told me, by the way, a lot of my experience was in community organizing with Brian Flagg. The guy she was talking about at the soup kitchen. We did community organizing together. It's relational. It's what you did at lunch. That was relational organizing. Relational community organizing is what you're doing here. And it's beautiful, and it's going to lead to more stuff like that. But the data and stories is superpower. You don't want one really without the other, because a really awesome little anecdote is powerful, but man, then you pack it some more punch with data and it'll make a difference. But same with in the other hand, millions of pounds, well, and my brain is breaking. But like connected to a story, like I only have one crate of grapefruit, like that, I remember that forever.
Never just one.
Yeah, lesson learned. Right. All right, I want to hand it a little back over to Iskashita because we have been doing a lot of new kind of, I guess, do you love how I say we? I've been with them for like 6 months and I'm like, I'm a part of that. But, and it's awesome. Let's talk about what we're doing with outreach because it's kind of, that's the culmination of the work we did over the last year with storytelling.
Yeah. Do you want to say something about maybe that we pointed out to tell your story or someone else will tell it for you? Like that
Yes,
bullet point
Oh,
that I
you go
think
ahead. Yeah.
had.
Yeah.
No, just
That would be
calling attention to that. And one of the, I don't know, what can you do? One of the things we've come up with is having an outreach committee. So it's me, Laura, another board member, Katrina, who's recently become our like resident artist. So this outreach committee, it's like we've talked about doing different things like putting together proclamations, working on an FAQ, going out in the community, doing events. So it's still kind of taking shape, deciding like what we want our messaging to be, like how do we want to do social media, what do we want to say? So we're still in the early stages of that, but as Katrina pointed out, like no one person has all the answers, but we're like coming together, and all of us can kind of form something that's going to become our outreach strategy.
Yeah. So, well, I think we only have like a minute left, should I? So these questions can be for you. We wanted to have at least leave you with some questions to think about. If we didn't even have time to actually do all the discussing and sharing out during this session right now. We are going to do a roundtable a little later this afternoon. If anybody wants to like continue this discussion of like whose voices need to be heard, which stories need to be heard by whom, and being really strategic about it. Yeah, so I think that's about it. Can get Barbara and Amelia to come over and I can say a proper thank you to them for getting me here and getting this work going. And what else?
Do we have any questions?
We have.
And I'm going to say about sharing this part, so I'm having the people listening to us talk for the next 10 minutes. How I find that it's difficult to get the stories from the field to a document to social media. Because sometimes it's different people that are out actually experiencing the story. And then the person who's going to put it into a grant or into social media. How do you all get those stories from the field into where this is?
I'm going to repeat the question so the Zoom audience can hear. How do we get, and I'm going to try to paraphrase, how do we get stories from the field and into these spaces where they are amplified and heard, either online or on the YouTube or whatever? It's not easy, right? There's some steps that need to be followed.
So that's what I find.
But not the same person
Collecting the story and tell it.
Oh, yeah, well, right. Capturing the stories either in audio or video recording and then getting them written down and then having excerpts pulled out for grant writing or for social media. How does that happen? Volunteers take time to do it and
It's definitely a struggle. It's hard.
How do people demand that you write down quotes, take in those testimonials? One of the things that we did was, we have these sheet of paper and it says, I support Ishkashita, why I support Ishkashita, and then have people write their answer there and then photograph that. That's one way, but I think we're still developing ways. All the videos, or some of the videos that we have finally got onto our YouTube channel were from way back when. And then taking longer videos, just getting snippets from them to share, since our attention span has shrunk dramatically in the last 20 years. So just enough to set that hook, so people want to know more, so people want to experience what they just heard about.
Like letting people who are doing the work and who are, like, we've got, like, you know, university students who want to capture stories, and to let people know, okay, you captured the story, like, your work is not done, you now have to share it. So like Laura's been working with us on getting that follow through, like getting to that point, because otherwise it's like we have whole class projects where they interviewed and they captured these stories, and here it is, like, in a file, and I think that's not been shared.
Another way that happens is not expecting perfection. Like, we are, there's piles of content that I would love to sift through, and as a volunteer, I don't have time to go through it all, but we're like taking little baby steps. That was thank you for that question, and we could talk a lot more about that. I'm gonna let Kathy take over.
Thank you. Thank you. And I do want to thank the three of you. Hang on, I've got your thank you gift.